that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. Today is the 5th of March, and we're starting a reporting on the 27th of February, and this is all news items about energy and climate change. I get these every day from the internet and put them up at my blog, which is called geoharvey.com. Now, for people who want to follow this as we talk, there's a link on the BCTV entry on this, so that you can click on it and go to
via BCTV.
Yeah, you can go to. I don't know. I would imagine that it would work with YouTube as well, but you can go to that other blog, the one that you and I used to set this up. Because that a lot of people will find
that's the weekly blog.
The weekly blog, that's right, which is just for this thing. And
some of these, I'm going to just mention.
Go ahead.
Some of these things are well worth looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've read every one of them. Try and call your attention to some of the better ones.
A couple of things this time around that are just mind blowing.
There's some good ones this week.
Yeah, there
very
are.
Definitely.
Yeah. So should we go straight into this?
I think we ought to.
I should mention that if you go to geoharvey.com, there's a calendar. We try to keep you up to date on the date from which on which the news item appeared at the blog, which is usually the day after it appeared in the news. And you can click on the date, and it'll take you to a place where you can pick it out of the 15 or so that are there. Our first item comes from renewables now, and we're going
to start out with a picture.
We are. That's the picture.
There it is. And it's an interesting thing because it shows that for the first time we're generating more wind in the U.S. than hydro.
Is the actual amount of electricity generated. Hydro goes up and down because we have drier and wetter seasons.
And wind goes up and down a bit too, but it's more or less steady. And you can see from this graph that it's just been steadily climbing.
Yeah, it has been. So this is, as I said, from renewables now. What do you got for a title, Tom?
The first one coming up says, wind surpassed hydro as the top renewable electricity generation source in the U.S. And I'll put this up again, and that's exactly what it's showing.
Yeah, and that is going to continue, we can say without doubt. In 2019, U.S. annual wind generation exceeded hydroelectric generation for the first time, according to data from the Energy Information Administration's Electric Power Monthly. Wind is now the top renewable source of electricity generation in the country.
Well, there's a good graph, as I mentioned, and this record was previously held by hydro, as the graph shows.
Yeah.
Now, 2019 wind generation totaled 300 million megawatt hours.
300 million.
That's a lot.
That's 300,000 bigawatt hours.
Bigawatts, yeah. Okay. Hydro fluctuated between 250 and 320 million over the decade.
Yep.
And it varied with rain.
With the amount of rain. Yeah.
The U.S. has 100 gigawatts of installed wind capacity right now.
Wow.
And 80 gigawatts of hydro.
Wow. That's 100 gigawatts of installed. I had forgotten that.
That came out of the article, so I didn't make it up.
You didn't make it up. Okay, our next item is from the Monterey Herald.
Yeah, Moss Landing battery storage project has been approved.
And this is one of the ones that I think is just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. The PG&E-backed Elkhorn Battery Storage Facility in Moss Landing, California, was unanimously approved by the Monterey County Planning Commission. It is the second element of what would be one of the largest, probably the largest energy storage project in the world. I shouldn't say the largest, probably the largest chemical battery storage project, because the big pumped storage facilities probably store more
Probably
than this.
store, right.
The total capacity will be 1,930 megawatt hours. And you know that...
Well, there's more coming.
Yeah, the Hornsdale Power Reserve, the one that Elon Musk made that bet, I can produce this in 100 days or you get it for free.
And he did.
That was 130, and this is not 1,930. So it's huge. It's just huge.
Well, we'll talk about the project briefly.
Go ahead.
It's going to include 268 lithium-ion batteries.
These are not the...
This is not what you put in your car.
This is not battery cells. This is big things.
And it's got a capacity to store up to 730 megawatt hours of renewable energy during the off-peak hours.
Yeah.
Okay, Vista Energy is the people behind this, is currently building an even larger 1,200 megawatt hour battery storage project on adjacent grounds.
So there's two projects. They're right next to each other.
And they're both big.
And they're both huge. And the 1,930 that we were talking about is the combination of the two.
Yeah.
So there it is. Okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, we got a picture coming up again.
And an item from The Guardian.
Yeah,
That picture is a picture of part of the Drax power plant.
In Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire. Yeah.
The Drax power plant to stop burning coal with a loss of 230 jobs.
The Drax power plant in Yorkshire will end all use of coal next year after almost 5 decades as one of Western Europe's most polluting power plants. Drax Group will stop burning coal in the plant in March 2021, 4 years ahead of the government's ban on coal-fired electricity.
But they're still burning things.
Well, I've lost track because you know, not that it's hard, it's just that I'd have to look to find out. But the last time I looked, there were 6 power plants in the UK that were still burning coal.
Okay.
And this is by far the largest.
This is the biggest one.
This is the biggest coal burning plant they ever had.
Okay.
And if you look at those towers, you know, those are big cooling towers.
Again.
Those are big cooling towers.
5 of them, huh?
Well, there's 5 of them there. There might be others.
Might be more.
Yeah.
Well, what Drax is going to be doing here is they're still burning things, as I said. They're replacing coal with wood waste pellets. Which, by the way, come from America.
Yeah, where they're waste from clear-cut forests.
Yeah,
which have been clear-cut in order to produce the waste. I mean, Drax promised the UK that they were going to be using waste wood.
Yeah, so they're cutting down forests and they're calling it waste.
So they come to the United States and they're clear-cutting forests in Georgia in order to get that wood. And they didn't make any promises.
I wouldn't call it waste.
It's not waste. You know, it's just, this is, I think, just...
They're playing games.
They're playing games, and they're
at least they've gotten rid of coal.
Well, they're doing wood, and they're also doing natural gas.
They didn't mention that in the article.
Well, I think they're half natural gas, and I don't think this is a great move that they're making, because if they were doing a great move, they'd be getting rid of all combustion.
Exactly.
I've come to a point
That's
where
why I say they're
just
burning
think
things.
Combustion is not the way.
We got to stop burning things.
We got to stop burning things. Okay.
Well, we got a good one coming up here, though.
Yep, and this is Friday, February 28th.
Shell Consortium eyes a 10 gigawatt.
This is mind-blowing. Go ahead.
A 10 gigawatt wind and hydrogen giant.
Oh my gosh, 10 gigawatts. This is from Renews.
10 bigawatts.
Yeah, 10 gigawatts. That's right, 10 bigawatts. Shell, Gas Uni, and Groningen Seaports have launched the North, I shouldn't say North, it's Nort H2 project. It looks like North.
It does, but it's...
To an English-speaking eye. The Nort 2 will entail construction of a purpose-built offshore wind farm of up to 10 gigawatts. It will supply electricity for industrial-scale production of green hydrogen in the Netherlands.
We'll be talking about this again. This is a new trend. They're going to...
It is.
I mean, hydrogen is a good way to store energy.
Well, there's a place you could use combustion. Burning hydrogen
gives you water.
It gives you water, which is what you started with. You know, I mean, they make the well. You can get hydrogen from other sources, but what they're doing now is they're splitting water molecules, and you get two products from
Like
that.
high school chemistry.
One is hydrogen, the other's oxygen.
Yeah.
And then what you do, you burn the hydrogen, which takes the oxygen that you released, that same exact amount out of the atmosphere, puts
gives
them
you
together.
water.
Yeah, and it gives you water as waste, which is where you started. So hydrogen is a pretty good storage system if you can store it, which is not all that easy.
No, but they're working on it.
When I was in high school, we had a chemistry teacher who said, "I want to show you guys hydrogen." And he went into the other room and he came back with a hydrogen bottle. And you could see that it said hydrogen on it.
Yeah.
And then he hooked it up and he turned the valve and nothing happened. And he said, "I should have checked this first. It does this every year." The hydrogen bottle has probably not been filled for 17 years while this guy was teaching. But he said, this was the problem. Hydrogen,
It'll leak right through glass.
it'll go right through steel.
Yeah.
The molecules are so small that it will go through between the atoms in a steel alloy, and it'll just come out of the tank.
Dissipate, yeah.
It's kind of tough to store, but anyway, okay.
Well, they, according to the article, they plan to have the first offshore turbines installed by 2027.
Yes, this is not happening tomorrow.
Green hydrogen production is expected to be around 800,000 tons per year by 2040. So they're not playing around.
No, they're not. And
Okay.
honestly, again, I think some of these figures are conservative.
Probably is. At present, industry is using large quantities of hydrogen, mainly produced from natural gas.
Right.
Replacement with green hydrogen will contribute to decarbonization.
Yes.
Okay,
Which
so it's a
means this
step
is
in the
just-
right direction.
This is just one more thing that you're not going to be using natural gas for. And the number of articles that I'm seeing appear about how risky investments in natural gas are is just going up and up.
Well,
and up.
they're not proving to be what they expected them to be.
they're not.
It's a big failure.
Oh,
really.
I should mention.
Yeah.
I keep an eye on the Dow Jones coal index.
Okay, which isn't going to exist very much longer.
I don't know.
think.
In 2008, it hit 745. Now,
2008.
2008 was the year that Barack Obama was elected.
Yeah.
By 2009, when he became president, it had dropped to about 165 from 745.
That's a big drop quickly.
That happened with George W. Bush in the White House.
Wow.
Now,
Who was not an opponent of...
no, he wasn't. But you know, they had that recession that came along during that time. Under Barack Obama, it went up, but it went down, and it wound up going from 150 or 165 or whatever it was to about 45, which is where it was when Donald Trump became president. Over an 8-year period, it
Okay.
dropped by about 75%, a little less than 75%. Since Donald Trump became president, it has dropped from 45. This morning, it hit $9.05.
$9? Wow.
It has dropped as a percentage-wise more under Donald Trump than it did under Barack Obama.
As a percent. Wow.
In 3 years as opposed to 8.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, that's basically, I think that's kind of good news.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
We got a picture coming
We
up.
got to see these people get jobs, but, you know.
Let's get
Okay,
this picture
this
coming
is
up
coming. Oh, got to get that out of there. Come on, guys. What's going on here?
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is that the picture?
That's the picture. That's
This
the
is a
picture.
Hydroflex train. I saw this picture. The first picture that I saw looked even more like this. It looks like somebody has painted graffiti all over the side of that train.
They did.
That's what it looks like to me. Okay.
Okay, next stop.
Yeah.
Hydrogen-powered trains. I'm going to put the picture up again real quick.
Okie doke.
Okay.
This is from the BBC. The UK's rail system is currently 42% powered by electricity. One line running to London from Hampshire runs entirely on solar power. Okay.
Yes, well, that's in existence now.
It is. However, 58% of the UK track is not yet electrified. And on those, diesel engines still keep trains running. One test system may show how to replace the diesel, and it is powered by hydrogen.
How about
How
that?
about
We're going to
that?
be talking about hydrogen a lot today.
I think we are.
Well, in this particular case, the hydrogen charges batteries via fuel cells.
Yes.
Okay. The only waste product, as we've already mentioned, is water.
Yeah, it's not combustion. It's a fuel cell, which
It's
is
a fuel
slightly
cell.
different way of doing things, slightly different because you're using the same products and you're getting the same result, except you're
But
doing
it's
it without
using it
heat.
slightly differently.
Yeah.
The system produces sufficient power to take the train 75 miles, which in Britain's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing. Electrifying a single kilometer of track can cost £1 million.
Yeah.
Wow, it's expensive.
It's
So
expensive.
hydrogen-powered trains are much less expensive. Okay, so this could be a portent of things to come.
Absolutely, it could. But I hope
Well,
I hope they have trains that don't look like somebody's attacked them with spray paint.
Well, I think that's kind of publicity.
I think it is, but I don't think it looks very good.
Well, the UK intends to do away with diesel-only trains altogether.
Well,
by
yeah,
2040.
and we're all going to have to do that. That's part of the
Well, it's
thing.
economics.
Yep. This. Are you done with that?
I'm done with that one,
Okay.
yep.
Our next one is fun.
Comes from the BBC. This one's kind of scary.
What?
Ducks?
Ducks.
China may send ducks to battle Pakistan's locust swarm.
Well, the locust swarms are scary, but the idea of using ducks to deal with them,
well, it's not new.
it's not new.
Not
I know.
new.
China could deploy 100,000 ducks to neighboring Pakistan to help tackle swarms of crop-eating locusts, reports say. Pakistan declared an emergency, saying locust numbers were the worst in more than 2 decades. An agricultural expert says the ducks can be more effective than using pesticides.
Which is good.
Yeah, this is the same outbreak of locusts, I think, that came from Saudi Arabia 2 years ago.
It's involved. Definitely. It's raining in the desert, which it's not supposed
Yeah,
to do, and
and-
there's nobody out there to notice it. So they're not saying anything, and all of a sudden you got a plague of
Yeah,
locusts.
we talked about
Sounds
this
like
last week.
Sounds like the Bible, doesn't it?
Well, it is actually, but there's something interesting about this. These locusts that they have in these swarms.
Yeah.
I looked it up, and maybe I looked it up wrong, but those locusts can be used in kosher cooking.
They can, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Well, it's good
A
if
couple
you can
quick
eat
takeaways
locusts.
here.
Go ahead.
Ducks have a voracious appetite for locusts.
Yeah.
Okay, and have been effectively used against locusts since ancient times.
There you go.
Okay, a single duck can eat more than 200 locusts a day without belching.
Did it actually say
No, I
that?
said that.
I didn't
They are
think so.
easier to manage than chickens because they like to stay in groups.
Yeah.
However, some question whether the ducks would be suited to the mainly arid conditions where the locusts are
Well,
a problem.
that had actually crossed my mind too. But I've seen pictures of how this is done. In the United States, there are farmers who use geese to weed
Yeah.
their fields.
Yeah.
And I've seen this where a tractor trailer pulls up next to a field.
They dump over the whole bunch of
They
geese.
open up the doors with a ramp. The geese come running down the ramp. They go out into the fields, and interestingly enough, they will eat all kinds of weeds, but they don't eat strawberries.
Good, good.
Okay, we are up to Saturday,
Well, let's see,
February 29th.
Oh, I just wanted to mention there's a 2-minute video on this.
Oh, yes.
And it's interesting how East Africa is battling devastating local swarms. It's only
Yeah.
2 minutes. It's
Yeah.
worth looking at.
Yeah. Okay,
Well,
we
we
have
got
a
another
picture,
picture coming up here.
of a. This thing is just being mean.
Being honorary, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Oh,
There we go.
Wrong one.
Notice?
Wait a minute.
We had the
There
right
it is.
picture.
There it is.
Okay, I'll try to get it up. Bingo.
Before I
That's
do something.
Gloucester.
There's an interesting thing about this picture. If you look just to the right of the middle in the sky, you can see 4 masts that are
Yes, you can.
on ships. If you look carefully just to the right of the right-handmost mast and just to the left of the left-handmost mast, there are things that are beyond the trees. Those happen to be wind turbines.
Oh. Kind of small wind turbines.
They're not all that small. Those
No,
things are a couple of miles away, and they're I forget. I think there's 3 of them.
How much you want to bet that that blue building's a bar?
The blue building. It has a lot of windows.
That's an interesting picture.
There's a
though.
picture that comes up later that has a lot of windows, and I want to talk about that. But in the meantime, this is from the Energy News Network.
It's interesting because they called the article called that Gloucester. Gloucester.
Yeah,
They call it Gloucester.
Gloucester. Well, it might be Gloucester.
Well, that's
You
where
know, I
it
mean-
originally comes from.
Yeah, except that it's Gloucester in
Yeah.
the UK. It's like Warwick, Massachusetts, and Warwick in the UK. And if you say Warwick, they laugh at you.
Well, it's not quite Warwick. It's Warwick.
Warwick, Massachusetts.
Well,
Oh my
I'm thinking
gosh.
Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
The letter R is illegal to pronounce in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island, yeah.
It's
Okay.
Rhode Island.
Okay.
Municipal aggregation savings, shattering expectations in Massachusetts.
The growing number of Massachusetts cities and towns that have negotiated community-wide rates for green energy have saved millions of dollars while also shrinking carbon footprints, according to a report released by the Green Energy Consumers Alliance. One of the first of these was Greenfield, just down
Was
the
it, huh?
road. Yeah, yeah,
I seem to remember that.
yeah.
Well, but apparently the towns, not the individuals, but the towns have a right to negotiate for green energy.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it's turning out to be cheaper.
Yes,
Not by much, but cheaper.
yes. So you can get green energy cheaper than traditional.
Traditional
And
energy.
in most of these places, maybe all of them, if you want to opt out of green energy, you're allowed to.
You can do it.
But you're going to pay a little
It's
bit
going to cost
extra.
a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fizz.org has our next item.
Fizz.org, it is that.
Fizz.org.
Research identifies climate change fingerprints and emitters liability. And that word liability is in quotes.
Yes, but it's also kind of scary for some people, I suspect. We have methods to quantify how much of extreme weather and how much of an extreme weather event can be attributed to human-caused climate change and how to allocate the cost of losses.
Now, that's an interesting point,
Yeah.
allocating the cost of losses.
Yeah, based on work by an international team of scientists and economists, emitters can be held responsible. And you know, this is an example that I've been thinking about on this thing. I've known that they would get there, but I've been thinking about this for some time. Hurricane Harvey had areas that were flooded that were outside of the 500-year flood zones. Never.
Yeah, they weren't supposed to flood.
No. And Hurricane Harvey had 17% more water dumped in that area than it would have if it hadn't been for climate change. They had already calculated this. And you can do that because you can base it on the temperature of the water that is generating the storm, the temperature of the air difference,
Yeah.
all of the stuff you can figure out pretty accurately, apparently.
Apparently nobody did.
Not in advance,
Yeah.
but they did afterwards. That 17% meant that areas got flooded that otherwise would not have been.
Yes.
So if a house got flooded and it was in one of those areas, the homeowner can say 100% of my loss is because of human-caused climate change.
That's interesting.
And if somebody died in one of those areas because of the flooding, that death could be attributed to human-caused climate change.
I learned a word here from this one. It's called the attribution science.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it provides a step, in this particular case, toward helping Pacific Islanders
Oh,
and anyone
yeah,
else harmed
absolutely.
by climate change
Yes.
to hold those causing the change to more
Absolutely.
precise account.
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
It sure does.
You did it, you pay.
Yes.
The researchers compare their work to that done linking smoking to cancer.
Yes.
Okay, it's kind of the same idea.
Yep. Okay, our next item is from Inverse, and we have a picture here.
Oh, yeah, this
I
one's
said
nice.
that there was a picture coming up that had a lot of windows in it, and this is the one. You see the superstructure on that ship, and you can see all the windows on the bridge.
Yes, you can.
Okay,
That's a cable laying ship.
It is
It's
indeed.
a specialized ship for cable laying.
think about this for a second, Tom. I looked at that, and I thought, oh yeah, that's the bridge of a ship, and naturally thought that given the location of the windows, that the bow would be on the right side of the picture. But those windows are looking toward the stern.
Yeah, they are.
And that just looks weird to me.
Well, when you look at what's going on, all of the work on that ship, when it's not just sailing from here to there, takes place in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Okay.
makes perfect sense that they would have all those
they've
windows.
got large, what would you call it, drums on
Yes.
board that where they store the cables.
Yes.
And they lay them out.
Yep.
And they splice them on the ship.
Yep. And
Just
we've
slice
had
the
we've
next-
had pictures of the spools that those cables are on, and
They're
just,
pretty big spools.
Amazing. Okay. You have not read the title yet.
I have not. It might sound insane, that's what it says. But Australia could soon export sunshine to Asia via a cable.
This is
Well, they're pushing it, but it's accurate.
yeah. It's the energy of the sunshine. The proposed Sun Cable project envisions a 10 gigawatt solar power. We're back to the big stuff, along with about 22 gigawatt hours of battery storage in the Northern Territory. Power generated will supply Darwin, which is a city in the northern. It's really the biggest city.
Biggest city up there.
up there. Although Alice Springs might be better known to Americans.
That's right in the middle of it.
It's right in the middle of Australia, but Darwin is the
big one up
the
there,
big
up
one in
north.
the Northern Territories, and it will also be exported to Singapore via a 2,360-mile long cable strung across the seafloor.
That's a big cable.
That's a long cable, yeah.
That's more than they can fit on that ship, I can
I
guarantee
think
you
it
that.
probably is, unless they're using really, really thin wires.
No, they're splicing it on the way. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
they
what,
are.
That's what they're
That's the
supposed to
only
be
way
doing.
they could do it.
Well, this technology is not new technology. I mean, they used it 100 years ago to span the Atlantic Ocean for the telegraph.
Yes,
You know, so, but this is now up-to-date technology, and they're pushing power through it.
yes.
When I was in the power cable industry, the company that I worked for had one of these ships. And I was on it very briefly.
Yeah.
Well, Australia is the world's #3 fossil fuel exporter.
Okay.
Right now, as of now. These fuels create substantial overseas greenhouse gas emissions. Australia doesn't currently export renewable energy, but a new solar project is poised to do that.
And we're going to have more to say about Australia's
exactly that.
exporting energy.
Power generated will be exported to Singapore via a 2,500-mile high-voltage DC cable, and it's going to provide a fifth of Singapore's power. Okay?
Gosh. Yeah, and then what they'll do is
it mentions that we already know, I guess, but just by looking at that, but submarine cables are laid using deep-sea vessels specifically designed for the
for
job.
that purpose, yeah. And what they're going to do is they're going to make huge amounts of electricity in Indonesia, and instead of using that in Singapore, they're going to use it in Hong Kong.
Probably.
I mean, I'm just making stuff up here, but you know, yes, okay.
Well, that's a long load for a
Oh, yeah.
undersea HVDC cable. That's
Yes.
and I'm sure it's more than one cable.
Yes,
You know, usually with
They
DC
put a
it's
couple
two
of them
cables,
together.
a positive and a negative,
yes.
and sometimes even a spare.
There you go. Okay, we're up to Sunday, March 1st, and we have an item here from Nation of Change.
J.P. Morgan Chase announces an end to financing new oil and gas drilling in the Arctic.
After a similar move by Goldman Sachs, J.C. Morgan Chase announced that it will end all financing to new oil and gas drilling in the Arctic.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yep, including the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Chase is the largest bank in the U.S. to release such an updated energy policy. And you know, other banks will get tempted to get in there and take up where these guys are in their.
Well, if there's money to be made, somebody's going to try and make it.
This is getting riskier and riskier and riskier.
Well, that's what the article says. Financing drilling in the Arctic is an expensive risk that's not worth taking.
Yeah.
Okay? Chase's new energy policy will also end financing for new thermal coal mines and coal-fired power projects throughout the world.
Worldwide.
So they're taking a real close look at what they do best.
Yes, and there are other ways to make money. Okay, we have a picture of wind turbines. This is an amazing picture, don't you think?
It is an amazing picture. I don't see any of the infrastructure that gets that wind power to market.
Well,
But there they are standing there like soldiers.
they are indeed, right in a line. Okay, this is from Motley Fool.
The Motley Fool,
Yeah.
which is a financial
It's a
advisor,
financial,
right?
yeah, it's a financial publication, web publication, and it's called Motley Fool as a kind of a disclaimer right in the title.
I think it's fairly highly regarded.
It is, yes.
So it says U.S. coal-fired plants just had their worst year since the 1970s.
In 2007, the U.S. generated a record amount of coal-fired electricity at an estimated 2,016 terawatt hours.
That's bigger than gigawatts.
That's bigger than gigawatts. That would be 2 million plus gigawatt hours.
Gigawatt hours.
This data was compiled by the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Last year, coal generated less than half of that, as natural gas, nuclear, wind, and solar all
set records. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the economy, stupid.
Yep. And you know, one of the things that I noticed looking at these figures coming from the government, not just the EIA, the Energy Information Administration, but also what they call FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory.
Yeah.
New gas-fired power plants, the construction is just falling like a rock.
That's basically what they're saying here. The next sentence says it. No energy source has experienced a 50% decline in output in a 12-year period dating back to the country's founding. 50% decline within 12 years never happened before.
Yep, but natural gas construction of new plants, that is falling like a rock too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Generators are turning away from coal primarily due to economics.
Yeah.
Okay, which makes sense. The share of an average customer bill dedicated to fuel expenses is expected to fall from 47% in 2010 to 28% by 2024. So that's almost half.
Yes.
Okay, the overnight abandonment of coal-fired plants, which is happening, okay, has created an opportunity for other power sources to gain market share.
Yes.
And a secondary
And FERC is artificially jacking up the price of renewable energy in order to keep these
coal
plants
plants
open.
going.
And of course, this is coming from a political background that says, don't fool with the market. You know, don't pick winners and losers. And they're just picking winners and losers.
They're picking winners and losers. There's a little bit of politics involved, I would
Yeah,
say.
a little bit of politics. But the politics are not based on ideology. They're based on some contributors' finances.
I would say, yeah. There's a little bit of money changing of hands there.
Heck with the ideology. We don't need ideology. All we need is the to know what the bottom line is. Okay, that was Motley Fool. Our next item is from Clean Technica.
Well, it says, damn the North Sea.
That is dam without an N. This is D-A-M.
Hey, it could happen.
Yeah, it could. Who says scientists don't have a sense of humor? Ho, ho, ho. Two of them just published a proposal to build two dams, one from Scotland to Norway and the other from England to France, to maintain water levels in the North Sea.
It looks like a joke, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not a joke. The interesting thing is that it would be cheaper than allowing the sea levels to rise.
Well, building the dams would cost between 250 and 500 billion euros.
Yeah.
Okay? Which they consider affordable. The cost of doing nothing ultimately would be many times higher.
Many times. Just think of the Netherlands, okay?
Yeah.
The Netherlands is built behind dikes.
Yep.
Much of the country is below
This is
sea
basically
level.
what they're doing here, or planning to do.
That's what they're planning on doing.
Well, without the dams, the North Sea levels are projected to rise by as much as 35 feet. We've talked about that.
Yes, we
By the
have.
year 2500. The authors acknowledge the effect on the environment would be considerable. The tide would disappear, and the North Sea would eventually become a freshwater lake.
I think that's
They're
stretching
pushing
things-
that.
Stretching things a little bit.
Well, from the article again, the idea to dam the North Sea is a wake-up call.
Yes.
The question is anybody listening?
Well, this actually says something about what the scientists did here. They are not actually, I think, proposing that we get out shovels and picks and start working on building a dam. What they're
I don't
saying
think
is,
so, but they're saying, let's think about it.
they're saying, let's think about it. They're saying, you think this is a ridiculous idea? Not doing anything is far more ridiculous.
That's a valid point.
You know,
You don't normally think about it, but that's absolutely right.
yeah,
Well, we got a nice picture coming up
we
here.
do indeed. We have an e-dumper. There it is, the e-dumper.
That is the e-dumper.
Yep. This
And-
is, by the way, we're up to Monday, March 2nd.
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right.
The battle for the title of the world's largest electric vehicle. And by the way, I saw a picture of a guy standing not next to this one, but next to the other one.
Yeah.
Tires are bigger than he is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a
Well,
big truck.
This is this thing here is a big truck, but
The other one's
the world's largest EV is an e-dumper, a 45 tonny, T-O-N-N-E, mining dump truck. This is more like metric tons.
It's a metric ton, yeah.
They're about 1.1 tons. So this is about 50 tons.
2,000 kilograms.
No, 1,000 kilograms.
Yeah, right. It's 1,000 kilograms. 2,000 pounds. 1,000 kilograms.
2,200 pounds,
Yep.
roughly.
Bingo.
It may soon give up its title. There is a much bigger EV coming, a hybrid vehicle that's powered by both a battery and, guess what, hydrogen. The new vehicle, and you know, I tried to check this figure because I don't believe it's tons. I think this is also metric tons, but the articles that I saw all said ton, ton. The new 290-ton EV
That's about 6 times as big. That's a big truck.
will do its test runs at a metal mining plant in South Africa. The plant by a metal mine. The mine is a place where they look for things like platinum and stuff like that. But this year they're expecting this. You know, I looked at this and I thought, how in the world do you deliver a vehicle like that?
In parts.
In parts. That's
In
the only way
pieces.
you could do it. Yeah.
It's too big to go and run on a highway. Anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, even the highways, the streets in Washington, D.C., where Donald Trump wanted to have tanks running in a parade.
Well, this is a lot bigger than a tank.
It's a lot bigger than a tank, but a tank would do a bigger number on the road because
It would
tanks
do that.
You want to remove a road, drive a tank on it.
Well, this e-dumper is currently hauling limestone in Switzerland.
Yes.
And a new South African new electric vehicle will be in South Africa.
Right.
And it's going to replace the diesel with a fuel cell and batteries.
Yep. Our next item is from Clean Technica.
This is an interesting article.
It is.
EVs are taking over the world.
Oh my gosh. They're coming out of the woodwork. EVs are taking over the world, and if you need proof of this, just look at the numbers of sales. Since 2015, that was only 5 years ago, sales of EVs have been growing at a rate of about 41% annually.
That's a lot, guys.
That's a lot, guys. That means they're doubling every other year.
Yeah, absolutely.
In 2014, there were just over 60,000 EVs sold in China. In 2018, the number sold in that country has grown to above 1 million.
So we're talking 60,000 versus 1 million.
Yeah.
Interesting. This article has an informative 10-minute video. It's
Yes.
worth looking at.
Yes.
Takes 10 minutes, but it's good.
Yeah.
And it's talking about trends in global EV sales.
Yes.
Okay, the sales mix of fully electric vehicles versus plug-in hybrids and why, and global EV adoption. Okay, it totals up to a 40% annual growth, as we said, for the entire world.
Right.
And PIHB, plug-in hydro vehicles, or what are they?
Plug-in hybrids.
Plug-in hybrid vehicle,
Yes.
PIHVs. They have a gas tank and a battery.
Yeah.
And that complicates the process of manufacturing, and it's really just not needed.
With cheaper batteries, it makes much better sense not to have a hybrid, but to have an EV.
Well, the article also mentions something that had me thinking. The batteries are temperature sensitive.
Yes.
They don't want to work very well in cold weather.
Cold weather.
But I thought about that. Okay, the car's still going to start.
Yes.
It's still going to run.
It's going to run.
Okay, and as it runs, it's going to warm up.
That's right.
So it's going to mitigate that problem.
Yes, that's right. Okay, we have a picture coming up.
Yeah, we do. Let's
he
see if I can
always
find
says
that
that,
picture. Huh?
He always says it, but this computers, it's driving me nuts today.
Yeah,
There we
I have
go.
a problem with it. Let's get that picture up.
This is also from Clean Technica. Interesting graph.
Look at that graph. That's
Yeah.
that's exponential, guys.
Yeah, I guess it is.
And that is a graph of climate disasters.
Climate disasters. What do you got for a title?
Oxfam. Every 2 seconds, climate change forces a person from their homes. And we've talked about that.
Yeah, we have. Every 2 seconds, climate change forces someone from their homes, according to data from Oxfam International. Climate fuels disasters are the number one cause of internal displacement globally, and they have increased, quote, 5-fold over the last decade, end quote. And you know, we've talked about this before. I did that research about the cost of flood insurance in the United States.
Yes, you did.
Going up by a factor of 47, where it should have gone up by a factor of 6 if you deal with inflation and so forth. This is just, it's another graph of the same kind of thing. We just have lots and lots of and you'll notice that down at the bottom there is a graph of non-weather related events.
Pretty flat.
It's pretty flat. It's been increasing, but you know, the population's been increasing. So,
Still pretty flat.
some of those events are, well, some of those events may be second order of consequence, but
They're not weather related.
they're not weather
that's
related.
The deal.
But that increase that we've seen, I mean, in the last 5 years of this graph, every single year was greater than what happened in the previous 5 years, any of them.
Pretty much.
So,
Well, from the article, it says that people are 7 times more likely to be left homeless due to hurricanes, floods, and wildfires
Yep.
as they are by earthquakes and volcanoes.
yep,
Man-made stuff versus
natural
natural things. Those in poorer countries who bear the least responsibility for global carbon pollution are the most at risk.
Yep.
Duh.
Right.
It's interesting how that happens.
Yes.
Well, almost 2,000 people died in Katrina, which was a disaster. But 200,000 people died in the tsunami that struck Indonesia the year before.
Well, another thing, you know, we're talking about the coronavirus now. You know, a lot of stuff. In fact, there was a thing today about General Motors having General Electric having to deal with the fact that plants are closing because of the coronavirus.
So they're not getting supplied.
We're going to have, I think, probably a recession worldwide because
of this.
But you know, we were set up for that other times too, and of course, Donald Trump isn't responsible for it. Truthfully, Donald Trump did not cause the coronavirus. And he shouldn't.
You're kidding me.
He should not be held responsible for that taking place. Although,
But it's not a hoax, is it?
no, this is not a hoax. Okay, we should probably move on.
Yeah, we
6
should. We've
items.
mentioned already, I think, Hornsdale.
Yes, we have.
So the Hornsdale Tesla battery exceeded expectations. You're going to tell us what the Hornsdale Tesla
I
battery
sure am.
is.
Tuesday, March 3rd is where this came up, and it comes from Clean Technica. The engineering consultant Oricon Group said the Hornsdale battery installed in South Australia has exceeded expectations for the way it was stabilized the grid and lowered grid-related costs. It reduced the cost of regulating the South Australian electric grid by 91%.
And that's an expensive thing.
Yeah, and this was the one where they had a bunch of tornadoes in South Australia. They tore down a whole bunch of high tension lines.
The tornadoes did.
A bunch of the towers that were, I think it was something like 16 or 18 of them were collapsed. So the whole grid was down for days.
Yeah.
And you know, Elon Musk said, what you need is a battery, and we know how to do that. And I can put in a battery that'll be 100 megawatts.
Or I'll give it to you for nothing.
If I can't do it in 100 days from the day that the contract is signed, you get it for free. And he had it in.
Yeah.
It was actually producing power 98 days after the contract was signed. And now what they're saying is it's
working
done
better than they
a whole
expected.
lot better than expected. And the price of it was extremely low also. Okay, we've got 5
It's
items.
Tuesday, March 3rd already. We've
Yeah.
got 14 minutes left.
We've got 5 items though. Okay, you have anything on that?
French energy company, Neoen, which owns the Hornsdale installation, says it is adding 50 megawatts of capacity at Hornsdale this year, and has plans for a giant renewables hub, which would provide nearly a gigawatt of battery storage.
Yeah.
So they're getting on the bandwagon here.
They are. They are.
We got a picture coming up,
We
so
do.
let's take a look at
This
it.
is from Sour Energy. I don't know where that
Sour?
picture. S-A-U-R Energy. Sour Energy.
Sounds sour to me. I
It
don't know.
sure is. I don't know where that picture was taken.
Well, it says Esco Pacific, but it's real. It's not an artist's conception.
No, it's not
That's a
an
real
artist's
picture.
conception, but I don't know where Esco Pacific
No, I don't
is.
know.
I usually look those things up, but this particular picture, I think, is just a generic picture that was thrown at an article.
It was in
So,
the article, or an article.
Okay,
Construction begins on a proposed 2.7 gigawatt Westlands Solar Park.
the CIM Group is advancing development of Westland Solar Park, one of the largest permitted solar parks in the world, it announced. The project will be in California's San Joaquin Valley, Joaquin Valley, and it could grow to over 2,700 megawatts, that is 2.7 bigawatts, at full build-out, powering over 1,200,000 homes.
Joaquin. Those Spaniards talk funny, don't they?
They do, but they have very wisely not gone the way of Rhode Island and said you're not allowed to pronounce an R. They pronounce it differently, but they do pronounce it.
Well, you said it. You pronounced this word right. It's one of the largest permitted solar parks.
Yeah.
They have a permit already.
Yes.
Rather than just permitted.
Yes.
I was thinking that as I read it, I said, wait a second, who's permitting solar parks here?
Yes.
But it's permitted.
Yes.
Means that it's on the works. It's in the works.
It is indeed. And we are, we have one more item from Tuesday. It's from The Guardian.
It's from The Guardian, and it says,
This was a big surprise for me.
UK government lifts a block on new onshore wind farm subsidies. I didn't even know this was happening.
Well, they did this. We talked about this when it happened, but
I
that
probably
was
forgot about
that was
it.
probably 5 years ago. The UK abandoned its opposition to subsidizing new onshore wind farms 4 years after ministers scrapped support for them. The government will remove a block against onshore wind projects by allowing schemes to compete for subsidies with other renewable developments.
I mean, I don't understand why they did that in the first place, other than politics.
It was people were objecting to the idea of wind farms, and some people would rather have fracking. But guess what, gang? Fracking has completely collapsed in the UK.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot, but they've got a long ways to go before the end of the road here. So,
well, the quick takeaway here.
yeah.
Onshore wind is presently UK's cheapest energy source.
Yes.
Okay? The U-turn follows the government pledge to cut emissions to virtually zero by 2050. So they got themselves painted into a corner here.
Well, they had to do something.
A feat that official climate advisors believe it will require the UK's onshore power capacity to triple in the next 15 years.
Yes, this is the thing. They've started to look at reality here.
Yeah. Yep.
So, there it
Wind
is.
farm developers will need to comply with tough new proposals on community consent.
Well, this is the thing.
This
They're
is
going to
what
have
it's
to go
about
to
to-
the community and say, we want you to want this wind farm. And that actually has
Isn't there a
worked. for
song
some
about
of them.
that? I know that someday you'll want me to want you.
Oh, okay. There was a guy who came from Germany, and he was talking in Brattleboro, and he was talking about wind farms, and he put up a picture of a wind turbine.
Yeah.
And it had been taken. The
In
picture,
Brattleboro?
No, it had been taken. He gave a talk
Yeah.
in Brattleboro. It had been taken from an apartment or something like that in Germany, looking out across rooftops, and there in the distance, pretty big, was a wind turbine. And he said, some people object to wind turbines, but other people don't. And and he showed a picture of the wind turbine that said people object to this, and down at the bottom it said their wind turbine. And he said, people accept this, our wind turbine.
Huh?
If the wind turbine belongs to a big company from some other part of the world, they object to it.
Okay.
If it belongs to the town, it's acceptable.
Okay.
You see.
Okay. Well, I can understand that.
And there are towns in Germany and other parts of Europe that own their own wind turbine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we have talked about the hospital out. Where is it in Kansas?
Oh, yeah,
Where they
Kiowa
got-
County Hospital, which has its own wind turbine between the parking lot and the front door.
Well, we're going to take a look at Mr. Warren Buffett.
Okay,
coming
there
up
is
here.
Mr. Warren Buffett.
In case you want to know what he looks like.
There he is.
There he is.
He looks very happy.
Warren Buffett's secret to cheap electricity.
This comes from Forbes. In his latest letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, Warren Buffett touted its low electricity bills for customers. Quote, the extraordinary differential between our rates and theirs is largely the result of our huge accomplishments in converting wind into electricity.
Well, he's sort of right.
Yeah,
He bought this company that now is known as Berkshire Hathaway Energy.
yeah.
Okay? It's a diversified conglomerate operating in 9 states and Canada. It's a big company.
It's
that
a
he
big
bought.
company.
It owns the means to generate, store, transmit, and supply power to its customers.
Right.
Okay? It owns 33 gigawatts of generation.
Gigawatts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
3/4 of that is wind.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's got 33,000 miles of transmission line.
And where everybody else is...
You don't even know about it. This guy's a big operator in this field.
He is. And Berkshire Hathaway, by the way, has historically been known as the company with the highest stock price of any company in the world.
Is that so?
It's like, I don't know, $50,000 a share or something. I don't know. I haven't looked for years. But so I could be way off with that. But Berkshire Hathaway is run by Warren Buffett, and he makes a lot of money. He's called the Wizard of Wall Street.
Yeah, he is that,
And
right.
he is a very bright guy who has figured out a long time ago that you can make more money on electricity if you don't have fuel that costs you money. And he's been keeping prices down at a time when everybody else's prices are going up. And he's guaranteeing prices for like 20 years into the future.
Keep your eye on that, man.
Well, you know, I mean, it makes sense. You don't know what's going to happen with the price of natural gas, but you do know what's going to happen with the price of wind.
Yep, bingo.
So there you go.
Well, I've said it before. I mean, when you got a fuel that doesn't cost you, when you got energy that doesn't cost you for the fuel,
Yeah,
you're ahead of the game.
you are ahead of the game. Okay, we have an item now from MSN Now.
We do that. Fossil fuels for power at a turning point as renewables surged in 2019.
The use of fossil fuels such as coal and oil for generating electricity fell in 2019 in the US, the EU, and India. At the same time, the overall power output rose, a turning point for the global energy mix. The declines suggest the end of the fossil fuel era could be on the horizon.
It could be.
Could
In
be.
2019, the amount of power sourced from fossil fuels dropped by 156 terawatt hours. Now, a tera is bigger than giga.
Terawatt hour is 1,000 gigawatt hours.
From 2018, 1 year, overall renewable power is increasing at a rate faster than the overall growth. Overall renewable power is increasing at a faster rate than the overall growth in power.
Absolutely.
The contribution of nuclear to the global power mix rose last year slightly.
Slightly.
And the reason for that is Japan is putting back online some of the plants they closed after Fukushima.
And the Russians are, and actually the Chinese have been putting on plants too, new plants, building
New plants. Well, in case of the Japanese, they're older plants that they shut down that they're turning back on
Right,
again.
and the Russians are pushing nuclear power plants elsewhere in the world because
Are
they can make a lot of money doing that. They know that it, you know, they're going to countries in Africa and saying, you need electric power. We can sell it to you. You don't have to worry about this. We'll loan you the money to buy it.
How sweet.
How sweet. Okay.
So we got a picture coming up here.
We do, and this is our last item.
get
It
this
comes from
picture
Renew
here.
Economy, and it is a mind blower. We've had a bunch of mind blowers.
Well, that's a picture of
The
Muscle Row,
Wind Farm.
which is in the upper right corner of Tasmania. And
The upper
Tasmania, Yeah, if you look at a map.
Yes, I know.
And Tasmania, of course, is a state in Australia.
Yeah, which in this article is referred to as a tiny island.
Well, it's not tiny.
Not exactly tiny.
Okay, but that's an interesting picture. It looks like a pretty place.
It's kind of like saying, well, Louisiana is a tiny state. I mean, compare it with Texas.
That's probably very accurate. Well, Tasmania sets a world-leading target of 200% renewables
What?
by 2040. 200% renewable.
They want to have 200% of their electricity
That
come
doesn't
from
make sense,
renewables.
does it? Well, you're going to explain to us why it does.
While Australia's federal coalition refuses to accept the notion that Australia can reach 50% renewable energy without sorcery or total economic destruction.
Sorcery?
Sorcery, that's what it says. Tasmania's Liberal government, and we will get back to Liberal on this, has just announced a possible world first, a renewable energy target of 200% by 2040. And the reason I said we'll get back to Liberal, the federal coalition is controlled primarily by Liberals. And the Liberals are the equivalent of conservative Republicans in the United States. And but the Liberal-controlled governments of Tasmania and also South Australia are really pursuing this renewable bandwagon hard.
They look like they can make some money on it.
That's the whole point. They've got this underground, submarine cable running to the main.
They're there already.
That's already there. They want to put in a second one. They want to have. Yeah. They want, in their words, to turn Tasmania into Australia's battery.
Yep. Well, Tasmania is already hydropower rich.
Yes.
It's got hydropower running.
Yep.
So they're going to double the state's hydro, wind and solar energy production.
Right.
And they've got what they call a Tasmanian Renewable Hydrogen Plan, which calls for commercially exporting hydrogen by 2030. And
they're serious about this.
Oh, I think they are, and I think they're going to do it.
2030 is not that far away. If you think about it, it kind of is it's an aggressive move to do this in 10 years. They've got to build ships to hold hydrogen.
Yep.
There are no ships that exist today to do that. They know how to do it.
Huh?
There's nothing. They know how to do it. It would be like a natural gas tanker, but this hydrogen that they're shipping is liquid.
And so they got to keep it cold.
It boils at like 20 degrees Kelvin. And yeah, it's got to be kept super cold. Of course, they can run the ships on hydrogen by allowing the hydrogen to boil into
And they can, yeah.
They could.
Well, what they're doing here is they have a resource.
Yes.
Which is their hydro.
Yep.
And they're figuring out we can make money on it.
Yes.
And that's basically what they're trying to do.
That's what they're doing.
And my goodness, a year ago I didn't even hear about hydrogen. And now everybody's talking about it.
Everybody's talking about hydrogen. Everybody's got new ways to get hydrogen cheaply and base it entirely on renewable.
It's basically storing energy.
Yeah, and hydrogen can be used as a replacement for natural gas.
Yes, it can.
To a degree.
In existing natural gas pipelines.
If you're going to extend the natural gas by adding hydrogen, you can just do that.
You can mix it.
Replacing it all together, well, you're going to have
a little tricky.
A little trickier, but nevertheless, hydrogen's a real product. It's not a. Anyway.
No, it's just that the technology is changing and people are looking at it, and hydrogen's starting to make sense for certain things that nobody ever thought of before.
Yep. And we have a message
this is the end
for
of it
you,
here.
Which is have a mysteriously felicitous week.
Mystifyingly
felicitous week. I forgot.
What does that mean?
I knew you were going to ask me. I made that sentence up. I don't even know.
Well, in any case,
felicitous means happy.
Y'all come back and see us now. You hear?
Absolutely.